Hi, friends. It is a Monday afternoon, and I'm obviously not sitting here by myself today. I'm sitting here with Mark Schnarr, who is a member of the congregation, master gardener, a keeper of the sort of core volunteer of our vegetable plots. We would have done this outside today, but the wind is blowing like 40 miles an hour, and if we were out there, all you would hear is wind. But trust me, even fallow right now, the garden, which is right outside my windows, is quite lovely. Mark, you were off talking about the garden here in midwinter over the weekend. So what was that all about?
Well, I was invited to be part of a panel discussion by AFAC, Arlington Food Assistance Center, and the coordinator there, who is responsible for all the Plot Against Hunger Gardens, which is what we fall under, Puen Lee, asked myself and three other church-related organizations to discuss why we garden and where the faith connection perhaps comes into that. So,
how did we garden?
How did we garden? How did we do that, huh? Well, I kind of shared with them under the broad general heading of why churches participate in things like this, of kind of the mission context. And while our mission statement certainly doesn't necessarily have these words, you could find these words in most church mission statements in some form or other, and it's basically feeding mind, body, and soul. And the body part's pretty obvious. We're taking the produce that we produce and giving it to the Arlington Food Assistance Center. They then distribute it to, as I found out from Puen, over 1,000 families here in the Arlington area. So it's quite a sizable organization. As I kind of then used a little PowerPoint presentation as to why we're gardening, I said there were three principal things that I saw us fulfilling mission-wise. One was certainly it's a community outreach. And not only do we provide, of course, the food, but there's an educational component. Almost every time I'm out there pulling weeds or harvesting, somebody walks by and asks a question, or says, well, what's that? Or can I see what you're doing? And of course, we have a preschool here in the building, and they participate by watering one day a week. And I showed some photos of some of the little kids in their little sand buckets, filling them up with the hose and then going over and pouring the water, most of the water at least, into the gardens. So I said that's clearly a part of why we're doing this, but we're also doing it to encourage member involvement. It's a way for our members to connect with some of our outreach programs, mission programs, and it clearly is a local mission as opposed to international or even somewhere in the United States. So we kind of look at those three key things that we're trying to hit or click or touch on when we do our garden. I then, as Puen wanted us to kind of talk a little bit about what key insights we might have learned from the garden and a little bit of history, of course, of each garden. So I try to talk to them, share with them rather a little bit of that. We've been doing this for 8 years. Our 9th year is coming up here. Our production on a very small 160 square feet is all we have. So if you can imagine 16 by 10 basically. We produce anywhere from a little over 300 pounds to almost 600 pounds, depending on the year and the climate. We use the raised beds because that allows us to do fairly intensive gardening. So we get 2 to 3 different crops over the same space each year, starting early in the spring through the summer, and then the summer crops, and even then into the fall again. We use, as I say, we try to utilize all the space that we can. We even have trellises and strings going up so we can put climbing vegetables on it. She wanted to know what kind of lessons we've learned or what advice we could give to other churches or church-related organizations that might be interested. And I kind of try to put down 4 or 5 things. One, and the key one, is there has to be some knowledgeable leadership. Doesn't necessarily have to be a master gardener, but somebody who has had some experience in gardening, vegetable gardening. And you clearly need to have 1 or 2 backups, as I call it. Somebody who can step in when you're on vacation, or handle the harvest and delivery for a particular week. And of course, course, you need lots of waterers, and that's where the congregation and the preschool kids and anybody else who wants to can pitch right in. Communications are important in terms of soliciting assistance or just showing what you're harvesting. I think I shared with them that we, on occasion, harvest the vegetables on a Sunday morning or Saturday and put them on the altar to show the congregation. We've done tastings of some of the produce to get the congregation interested. And we experiment. I told them about our potatoes in a bucket experiment, which we've been doing now for 2 years, rather successfully or moderately successfully. And those, I think, were all well received as ideas. We asked if there's any questions from the group, and there was the normal, well, how do you communicate and all this kind of thing. But there was one question that I actually couldn't not answer because we've never asked ourselves the question. And the lady that asked it said, well, what, by this garden, how has it impacted your members spiritually? And I'm thinking, I'm starting to scratch my head because I really have never asked that question directly. So that may be something, Pastor, that we want to, I don't know, follow up on at some point in time and just see, what impact there is there.
So how has it impacted you spiritually?
Well, it's kind of the when I use the phrase master gardener, even though it connotes a certain amount of training and expertise you have, in my mind, the master gardener is God, and we're all just using our hands to try to do our best to work with what resources we have to provide where the needs exist. And so that's how I see myself, as someone who, now being retired, I've got some time, got some experience in this. So it's kind of a win-win, and I enjoy, other than maybe a few dirty fingernails now and then, or sunburned necks. It's been a real adventure in learning some new things that the intensive gardening is a little bit new to me, but I had fun with it.
Yeah.
And the people here at Clarendon have been wonderful in stepping up or volunteering to help and be of assistance.
Cool. That is awesome. And if I can figure out how to do this, when this goes up on YouTube and Facebook, there'll be a contact link. So if you hear Mark talking about this and you want to get involved, there'll be a link that you can click on to connect with the church office and give them your contact information for when, because it's not that far down the road.
No, I'm already
out there.
this Saturday, in fact, coming up, I'll be going to an AFAC presentation where they're going to be passing out free vegetable seeds, which is a good source for us to get our starting crops. And so I'm already, starting to collect ideas and thoughts for what we want to plant this coming year.
Yeah, and frequently we start Lent with some kind of planting of seeds, and during that season watch the little seedlings sprout, and sometimes, when that works well, some of those go into the garden at Easter time, and Lent's starting real soon.
It is, very soon, very soon.
So, yeah.
I did mention to the group, and it was very well received. Everybody said, "Oh, what a great idea!" Which was your original idea for Easter, instead of buying tons and tons of Easter lilies, maybe a few, but interspersed then with some transplants, the vegetables that we would buy normally for the summer, tomatoes, peppers, etc., and use that as part of our display. And everyone thought that was a great idea. So, attaboy.
Well, it's really pretty, and it's useful in the world.
Exactly.
And for those of us who are allergic to lilies, Easter is not Sudafed Sunday. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for stopping by.
You're welcome.
And helping with this experiment, and we'll see where it goes.
We'll see where it goes.
Thank you.
Good gardening.